My name is Courtney. Welcome back to my channel and I hope you are doing so very well. Today I thought I'd have a little bit of a chat to you about the journals that I'm currently using, that I've used, that I'm flipping through, just a little bit of relaxed journal chat because I feel like I've gone through quite a bit of journaling since I last sort of did a flip here on YouTube. Now my current journal is a B6 and this is this baby here, but I've also basically finished almost my big A5. It was just getting a bit too hard to continue and also getting to the point where it was too heavy to carry around in my bag. So I don't think I've done a full flip of this. I will do a non-chatty version of flipping through this, so look out for that soon. But I thought I'd just have a little bit of a journal chat while I've got some spare time on my hands. And my travel journal is in progress as well. It is also a B6. So these are the current journals in my life that I am using. I do have a little bit of a Feel Notes little art journal, which isn't anywhere to my hands right now, but for today I thought I'd just have a chat about these three. Now currently I am in a B6, but I did spend a lot of time in the last 2 years journaling in an A5. Now this is a Midori MD notebook, and as you can see it's pretty much at capacity. I've only got this little back bit to go, but I was just going to do some written pages in there because it's just gotten to the point where my cover's just not coping and it was just a little bit ridiculous, really. So this is a Midori MD. It's very reminiscent of the 003 insert, which was my go-to insert when I was in a traveler's notebook in the standard size. And actually when I finish this little baby, I'm going back to standard size. So I'm going to have a play back in standard size where it all began. And this is a Sojourner Folio in the Enoch leather with a special designer pocket. And I absolutely love this. I wasn't in this for very long because I got my cover a little bit late in the game. And when I switched out, I probably had about a month of using this before I was ready for the B6. So I'm just going to have a quick flip. I started this at the start of 2018. So this is basically a year's worth of journaling for me. And then I've obviously got this journal and my Japan journal, which is specifically a travel journal, and it's not finished yet. I'm still in the process of finishing it. So I have really enjoyed going from basically a standard size into an A5, and I've been in the A5 for about 2 inserts now, 2 to 3 inserts, and I have really enjoyed the real estate that I've gotten. The only downside is if I'm going to be adding all these tip-ins and photographs and artworks and things, my journal gets really bulky really quickly. So I either needed to get an insert that was smaller and thinner, so I wasn't having to have so much stress on the spine and so much stuff going on, and it would stay relatively thin even if I did bulk it up with all my tip-ins and artworks and things. So if I ever go back to an A5, which will always be on the cards because I do love the real estate that an A5 gives, I would probably go for a lot thinner insert. With my A5 journals I was using quite thick inserts, and my last one was a 7Cs Nanami paper crossfield, and obviously had to do journal surgery on that because it got to the point where it busted the spine, it couldn't cope. So I think going further, if I was ever to go back to an A5, or when I do go back to an A5, I would definitely be using a thinner sort of A5 insert because, let's face it, I'm addicted to tip-ins. I love tipping in photographs. I love playing around with cool things like see-through windows and artworks, watercolor paper, pockets, slip pockets, all that sort of thing. I love all this sort of stuff, and all that sort of does add bulk to your journal. And I don't want to stop the way that I journal because I love this mismatched, messy, crazy bit of art, bit of life. That's my tagline, where art and life collide, and my journals are definitely that sort of thing. It is definitely a big smash between my reality and my fantasy, my drawings, my illustrations, and so I wanted to make sure that if I was to ever go back to an A5, that I think a thinner journal is probably my best bet. Now this book held up really well to a lot of media. It did hold most medias pretty well. I've used fountain pen all throughout this journal, and I use De Atramentis document ink, so waterproof black ink, for the majority of what I'm doing in here. I did lots of watercolor. I'm pretty sure this is gouache watered down. I used sketching, rub-on, stamping, and if I did have any bleed through, then the next page I would normally just add something, say like collages over the top. I used a lot of sprocket pictures. These are sprocket pictures, and just added a whole heap of bits and pieces, original artworks, pages, collage fodder, a lot of acetate windows, acetate frames, acetate tip-ins, especially if I wanted to cover up some sort of journaling that I didn't really want to be easily read. I kind of did a bit of everything in this journal, and I had a lot of fun doing the pages on this journal. I loved adding huge photos. They just sort of say a lot without me having to write a single word down, and I really enjoyed putting giant photos in. I also did a lot of tip-ins, tip-in upon tip-in upon tip-in. I used a whole heap of things. There are some pages in here that don't have any writing on it, and I'm a-okay with that. I don't journal chronologically, so I kind of jump in and around some pages, and I may one day come back to these, but even if I don't, it's okay. I'm not really hard and fast on the rules in my journal. I just sort of go with the flow. The whole point of journaling is to enjoy the process, and so if I'm not feeling a spread and I want to leave it half finished, then I'm going to leave it half finished, because I don't like pushing myself to do things that I don't like. And this is why I not abandoned, but I stopped working in this journal towards the end, because I wasn't enjoying it anymore, because that hump life was just, it was just insane. And I really do love carrying my journal around with me. And this was the first time I had journaled in a B6. This was my Japan journal, and I carried this around all through Japan. It was literally busting at the seams with ephemera, and I had no issues carrying this around whatsoever. So it kind of made me think maybe I should go and size down, because I love having my journal on me. I love having it with me so I can pull it out randomly. There are a lot of spare moments and times when I want my journal to draw or to sketch or to write an idea down, but it got to the point with this, the beast, that I just couldn't. It would just weigh a ton in my bag, and I would hurt my shoulder even attempting it. Believe me, I did take my bag out, my journal out quite a lot, but I did pay for it. And so I don't think an A5 of this size is in my cards anytime soon, but a thinner version may very well be. I love using Project Life cards for tip-ins. They're really good. They're not great for holding wet media, but they are fantastic for adding things on top of. I created postcards on top of these when I did a Spellbinders video recently on their channel. And Project Life cards are where it's at, man. I have a huge stash of them because they're so versatile for adding little photo collages and adding all your bits and pieces. Again, more Project Life cards. I did lots of sketches, a lot of my own like collage elements. A lot of the things that were in my Patreon collage elements sometimes were drawn in here. Not very often anymore, because it's just getting too bulky and it was really hard to scan. So there are unfinished pages, there are finished pages, there are just, this is all watercolor I think, and this is colored pencil. I always added Happy Mail postcards as well from my girls over in California. I did add bits and pieces of things to remember, like Harry and Meghan getting married, but I don't usually do a lot of documenting of my everyday life. I like to document things, and this was the magic in the mundane, but I also, my journal is more a reflection of my thought processes and how I'm feeling and how I'm thinking than it is like we did this today and we did this today. So my journal may be very different to yours, because I treat it as my own sort of brain dump place where I put down my feelings and where I'm putting down all those bits and pieces. But if there's something that I want to document that's like a family event, then I'll date it and write about it if I really, really want to. And I have done that before. I wanted to paint some watercolor bugs, so I sat down one afternoon and just painted a beetle. This is when we went and saw The Lady and the Unicorn in the city with me and Sam and Sian, which are two of my best friends. And I must say that this journal held up really, really, really well. Considering how much stuff and tip-ins and just everything, it's gone really, really well. There are some pages that I just like the look of and didn't add any words, like some stuff like this. This is me playing with Lindy Stamp Gang products. More Lindy Stamp Gang when I was just playing around with the colors, doing some painting, some little collages, some nook dwellers. This was actually taken out of my journal, but it was taped in. This was also a project I did for Spellbinders as well. So you can see that they're little journaling tip-ins, and they're my little kids. So there's those little fishy people there, and like a little underwater seascape that they sort of slip into, which was really fun to play with. But I had to photograph it for the blog, so I had to take it out of my journal. So it was tipped in there, and I'll have to tip that back in because it's really hard to photograph this journal because it was so chunky and large at the time. Playing with characters and how tilting a head a certain way, tilting an eye a certain way can evoke a completely different emotion. Oh, there's a $3 international stamp in there. And this was all done with Lindy Stamp Gang products as well. The Magicals and the, what are these ones called? I think these are Magicals too, they're just different. So I did a whole heap of vintage stuff. So this is in the shaker form and this is in the pot form. And I diluted them. Sorry, my brain's having a moment. I diluted them down so I could work with them like a watercolor, and I wanted to sort of trial a vintage style or my take on vintage for a journal prompt. And it was very much a challenge for me, but I absolutely love these. Are some of my very favorite pages, and it's crazy because I'm such a fanatic pink lover that it was so interesting to have these really cool vintage elements and not an ounce of pink to be seen. And it's one of my very favorite spreads to date, and I definitely want to do this again. I'm actually halfway through editing this spread for a YouTube video, so I may get my bum into gear and finish editing that for you guys, because I think it's fun to see me take on a different style, different color palette. I really loved it. I loved how all my photographs went really well. So yeah, this is the monster that I did for a Jane post. I love this guy. I still really love him. Big giant tip-ins. Adding more tip-ins. I think sometimes I just enjoy the process of sticking things down and not writing about it. Or I go, oh, I'll write about it when I get a spare moment. And then I never do. And I guess that's okay as well. But sometimes I feel like I need to make more time to do the writing, because it's all about the writing. Or I sit down on the couch to write while we're watching TV, and then I just get absorbed into TV because it's a time for my brain to just zone out a little bit. Watercolors, random odds and ends. This was for a challenge called Use It or Lose It that I was doing over on Patreon, and creating a tub of items that I had for a really long time and weren't using, and I was challenging myself to actually use them. So these are all these sticker sheets that I have lying around when I had all the Korean diary stickers, and I didn't want to get rid of them, but I wanted to find a way to use them. So I just created a huge pocket where I could see them all the time, but they're actually serving me a purpose. The Use It or Lose It challenge is still going, and I have so much fun trying to challenge myself to use things. Like, I have 1 million alphabet stickers. A literal million, and I have to try and use them in as many ways as possible in my journal to try and get them used up, because I feel bad that I've got all these supplies that are sort of just hanging around and not doing anything. I love this page. I loved the cherry blossoms. We don't have very many. We have a couple in our street and they're only out for a second. I feel like I get excited every year when they come, and then they just disappear so quickly. And I think getting to the end, that was the last bit, and this was for another Jane Davenport video, which is over on the Spellbinders YouTube channel, and that is pretty much it. And then I was like, ugh, I can't do this anymore. I was literally living, so if I was to write, and I'm left-handed, so odds are against me already, it was just getting too hard. So that is my entire journal in the A5, and I'll give you a quick flip of my other two journals since I'm here. Now, the one thing I did love about the B6 is that it felt personable and it felt intimate, and it felt like you could get a lot in the page without feeling like you had to give up the real estate of the page. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. But I love adding a whole heap of stuff, and the small things still look big because the page is quite small. That's what I meant. So this is my Japan journal. It is a work in progress, so I have not finished it, but I'm slowly making my way through, adding all my bits and pieces, getting all my illustrations and my photographs in it. And it's has been such a fun experience to sort of relive everything, to come back in, add ephemera, add photographs, add all the bits and pieces, and it's been an absolute joy to work in this journal. Now, this insert is actually one of the inserts that come with or used to come with the Sojourners. I think when I bought a traveler's notebook in B6 size, this was the notebook that came with it. So I already had it in my stash, and I wanted to make sure I used it. And this paper has held up so very well and done a really amazing job. I've put distress stains on it. I'm pretty sure this is the Dilution sprays, and splashing distress stains onto acetate and then dragging the acetate over my page was really super vibrant. The distress oxides, which are a big fave of mine as well, that I use, and just really enjoying the whole process of documenting our trip in Japan and getting really bright and colorful, because I felt like Japan was just so animated and bright and beautiful and filled with amazing things. And like I heard Fran Nerd say this when she went, and this is before I had gone, she said they have mascots and things and like illustrations and little creatures for everything, and she's totally right. Now, there are blank pages in here that haven't been worked on, and that's because I've got lots of things that I want to add to them, but I haven't added them yet. So I'm kind of in the middle of bits and pieces. I add sections, and then there's more completed pages back here. I'm just enjoying going back and forward. I don't work on things very chronologically, but I do work on things if I'm feeling the need, or today I feel like working on this. A little self-portrait. Going to all the travelers notebook places. I visited each store in Japan, the 3 stores, and I loved each and every one of them. It was so lovely to go back to visit a place that had changed my life when it came to journaling. And my traveler's notebook, my trusty brown one, which is actually in the dining room at the moment, that book basically changed how I felt about journaling, changed how I journaled. So it was really lovely to sort of spend that time in the different travelers notebook factory shops. I just loved it. And these are all our little tickets. They get stuck that we went to the Studio Ghibli Museum, and little maps and things. And this is the little map that you get in the brochure. Stuck that in. This was one of the stained glass windows at the entrance. And the thing with the Studio Ghibli Museum is you can't take any photographs inside, it's banned. So it was really hard to sort of document such an amazing museum when you couldn't take any pictures except for outside. So a lot of my photographs are outside. I did buy some of the big brochures that have all the indoor pictures in it, so I'll probably cut some of those up to add to the ephemera. These little bits here I've sort of popped in because I know they go in this section, but I haven't quite done it yet. Some of my illustration work, my collage work, and little tokens. These were extra slides that I bought at the gift store, little business cards. So they're in there, and I think there's only like bits and pieces sort of added. I did pre-color some of the pages before I left, so I wasn't working with a blank book. And then I've still got Tokyo Disney to document as well. So that's still to go. Some of our plane tickets in here. So that is my travel journal, the in progress travel journal that I've been working my little heart out on, and I absolutely love it. And this is the tricolor folio from Sojourner that I don't think you can get anymore, but I called it the Crayola TN because I love that it had the 3 colors and it was just beautiful. And I did actually draw a creature that was holding a little tricolor TN, and this is the cover because I do want to actually still use this cover when I finish the journal. So I made sure I covered it with sort of Japanese inspired thing called the Inky in Japan. So that's what and I've covered it with clear contact so it's nice and sturdy. So there's that, all my little bits and pieces in there. And this is my current journal. So this is the Stag leather with the special pocket in the designer. It is a folio as well, and my insert is actually from Brie from Documented Journey, and so it has been handbound by her, and I will say she told me to abuse it as much as possible. It's doing okay. It's holding up okay. We're almost through the 2nd signature, so we've done 1.5 signatures so far, and we're doing all right. Props to her. She did say to me, do as much as you can to it. I want to see how it goes because I've busted everything else so far. So she told me to put the journal to its test. So I'll pull it out so you can see how it's going. And so you can see that is how my spine is looking. Not too bad, Brie. I think it's doing all right. I think we're doing all right. So there is what it currently looks like. So I will just quickly go through this before this video becomes 1,000,000 minutes long. So this is a mixed media. It has the Strathmore mixed media paper, and then it's got Tomoe River paper in it as well. So it's a mixture of papers. I am enjoying it. Even though I'm like 1.5 signatures in, I still get shocked when I reach a different paper. So these ones are the thicker ones, and then you can see here that this is a Tomoe River paper. So this is where my current journal is at. And like I said, I love how the small things can still look large on this journal because it is a B6, and that's something that I really love about it. The small details aren't lost on a B6 page, where I feel like some of the small details get lost on an A5 page. So I am really enjoying working in the B6, and it's been really fast. Like, I will finish this journal by the end of the year because I'm probably going to do December daily, and I'm currently doing a daily gratitude thing at the moment over on Patreon. So I've been working like a lot in my journal, and so I'll probably need a new journal come January, which is always nice. And that's when I will be going back to the standard size, going back to where it all began. I love using the sample bits of leather or the business cards that Rose send with her orders, so I normally turn them into tabs because I don't want to waste them. They're always beautiful. So a lot of the times I will staple it and make a tab out of something. Hubby and his beautiful mini ears. It's one of my favorite photos of my husband. I think I've got it in 3 different journals. I don't care. I love it. This was a blog post over on my blog for Jane when I did a blog hop recently. and this is actually the hair of one of her stamps, and I didn't want it to be, I didn't want the face, so I cut it off and I revamped it. I always try and find ways to sort of Courtnify Jane's stuff so it looks very much like me. And these are highlight monsters that I've been working on, where you take little highlights throughout your day and write on them. I'm so terrible about keeping in frame. It's really ridiculous. Little packets and things. Some pages again aren't worked on fully. I'm going to take this out because it's making quite a lot of noise. My little bum cushion page, what do you call them, bookmarks? But yeah, these ones haven't been worked on yet, but I will find one day something will draw me to them and I'll work in them. I've got no real it's very generic pictures and stuff. They have no connection to a certain day, so if I'm feeling the need to write, I'll probably get out my pen and just fill the pages up. And I've got old photographs. I try and use a lot of old photographs up because I have a drawer full of photographs that haven't been used. I am considering, well, I'm not considering, I am going to be making a journal, like a really, really big one, called the Journal Spill, and it's where all my other stuff, or where my life spills over from my actual journal. So I have stacks of photos that haven't made it into journals, haven't made it into albums or anything, and I've got ephemera and collage sheets and things that just haven't, it's the life that spilled over what's in here, and I want to make a giant journal that is like a patchwork of life. I just have to work out how I want it to look, which is why I haven't done it yet, because I want it to be perfect, but I think the perfectionitis is getting to me a little bit. This was another blog post, so my take on a ladybug. This is actually a flower, and these were little flowers, so I've turned them into ladybug antennas, and I absolutely love how she looked, although this one looks very much like the Fancy Sister, so there's that. And then I've got the Grateful Heart prompts, which I did for Patreon, and each day it was something that we were grateful for. Now, I mentioned in my video that I always see things as a glass half empty instead of a glass half full. So I'm always trying to be more positive in my life and to try and be more grateful, but I always have trouble doing that. So I wanted to create a prompt list that was a gratitude list, something that I could come to my journal daily and journal about the items and the things that I'm grateful for, and sort of encouraging others to do the same, in a way to sort of help me train my brain to be more of a positive mindset instead of an anxiety ridden mindset. And that's kind of where I was. So we did 1 to 30 prompts. We didn't do 31. No, 1 to 30. So that's kind of what I wanted to do. This is another one of the highlight monsters, and I just happened to put the prompt list in there as well. So I've been slowly trying to do this journal every week. So I do a week's worth of journaling, and then I make a video about it. I may put some of those gratitude videos onto YouTube because I think it's very important. So some of the prompts are sort of, I try to make it really easy and quick, and not something that was going to take me hours and hours. I wanted it to be fast but very effective, and so I made sure that I didn't spend too much time on each prompt, and I made sure that I was just being really quick about it. So that was the whole point. I didn't want it to be this huge thing that would take up time. It would take up forever and ever and ever. And so this is a supplies tab, because I wanted that supplies was one of the things. So I have a supply documentation book, and then this is I've just scanned a page out of that journal. So it's here. I popped it in my scanner and then just sized it down and turned it into a pocket, because that prompt was about supplies. So I've got all these. I've also have pictures that have been scanned out of my Japan journal, because none of Japan made it into my normal journal. And I wanted to remember some of those moments in my journal. Like I felt like I was missing that triggering experience, like getting triggered by a memory. I didn't have any of the memories in my journal, so I started popping some of my trip memories into my journal because they made me feel good. Like, we had a blast in Japan, hubby and I wanted to make sure that I had those moments in my journal so that I could remember them. And because they're in a separate journal, I don't see them, so it's kind of like that out of sight, out of mind stuff. So these are some of the prompts. And I sort of talk about why I'm grateful for these things. So creativity is being grateful for creativity. It wasn't about creativity, it was about John bringing my creativity back to me. So I was grateful to have him in my life because I felt he restored me and my creativity and my love for creating. He brought that back into my life. I always say I lived in grayscale until my husband walked into my life and recolored me. So even though it's not a traditional take on creativity, that's what I was fully grateful for. So there are a lot of different sort of takes on things with each prompt. I didn't want to do too literal. Sometimes I was literal, but a lot of the times it had a deeper meaning. Boo as a butterfly. Music was Hanson, which was my high school huge crush. And so I actually printed out their Christmas album and turned it into a little musical bird. And it was because Hanson brought me and my best friends together, and I had the best time in high school. And Hanson was like the soundtrack of my entire high school. I know it was tragic. I'm not ashamed to admit that I was a Hanson fan, and you can hate me all you like. But I loved them, and my best friends loved them, and we had amazing times together. And Hanson was usually playing in those times, in those memories. So even though it's not directly hugely musical, it was a musical moment in my life. Paper was another thing. So I actually scanned my first journal that I got in 1997, like my first big girl journal from my nan. So I scanned it, and I wrote about paper and collage and documenting my life on paper. And my son's starting to keep a journal, and it just makes my heart want to explode, basically. So there's lots of different things. Color, love, Hubster. Our animals, this will be really hard to see, but in this little hole here is Raven, and we have, it makes me laugh every time I see it. So Miss Raven, I happened to catch her peeking through the hole of the side gate when I was getting the kids' bikes ready. Made my day, absolutely made my day. My little babies, hubby. So this is where I'm currently at. My kids are playing out in the backyard. So if you hear them running around like flips, I apologize. But it is the afternoon after school, so they behaved well enough. This is Elijah through the ages. And the fact that I got his high school orientation day note the day I was documenting this, I got all teary and sappy, and I can't believe my little boy is going to high school next year. It just blows my mind. I got pictures of Boo. And then I've got one of the prompts in here was food, and I have a really unhealthy relationship with food. So I wanted to keep this one sort of hidden behind a closed tab, so I'm trying to just put it in there. So I have a lot of trouble being grateful for food because I have such a terrible relationship with it. So I wrote about that, and I still don't feel grateful for food. I think there's a huge amount of problems linked to food. So I made sure that I kept that hidden behind a nice closed pink tab. And that is currently where I am at with my journal. I have loved working in this. I think the B6 is a fantastic size. It's so portable and so lovely. And I've enjoyed it in my Japan journal, and I'm really enjoying it in this journal. So once I'm done with my standard, I will have to sit down and think really hard about what size I go back to. I have even considered journaling in a pocket or journaling in an A6 even, but you never know. But I've enjoyed sort of trialing and playing around with different sizes because sometimes you never know unless you try something. So I haven't hated any experience so far with any size journal, but I've definitely really enjoyed the B6. So if you haven't tried it, give it a go. It's nice and portable, and I feel like I can get a lot of journaling in, and I feel like I journal faster in a B6 than I do in a B5, than I do in an A5. But yeah, so instant gratification if you're looking for even a B6 Slim. I don't know if I could do a B6 Slim. I know there are people like Ali that does B6 Slim, but I don't know. I haven't tried that size and I don't know if I'd enjoy it. But you never know. Like I said, you never know if you don't try. So that is it, my loves. I hope you've enjoyed this little journal chat. It seems to I've been talking for a very, very long time. But that are my current and past journals that I've been working on in the year of 2018. So I hope you've enjoyed sort of seeing my brightly colorful life. And if you have any questions, pop them down below and I will do my absolute best to answer them as best as I can. And I will be trying very hard in 2019 to get content up on my YouTube channel. I think I've got the balance sorted out. If I do everything to my plans, I should be able to be getting my YouTube channel back to life, because I miss this space as well. I miss talking to people outside my little Patreon bubble. So don't get me wrong, my patrons are amazing. They have supported me and my artwork for the last 3 years now, and they have helped me and my husband reach some really amazing goals financially, and it's made me feel like an equal in my marriage financially. For once, I feel like I'm earning my place. John never made me feel less than, but for my own self-worth, it is amazing to be able to do what I do as my job, and I'm very, very thankful to my patrons. But I also really want to make some content for the YouTubes. So we'll see. We'll try and get a journal with me maybe once a fortnight on YouTube. But if you have any questions, pop them down below, and I hope you have a fantastic week, and I'll see you again soon.